Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Sling Ages podcast. This is season seven, episode number six. And today is a special treat for me because I again get to talk to Deborah Holland about her new album, I Made It This Far, which is out on March 5th, 2025. You may remember that I spoke with Deborah back in November of 2022 and we talked about the wonderful Animal Logic songs that she put out. She put two songs out back in 2022. Had a wonderful conversation back then, and since then, Deborah has been very, very busy with all aspects of her career. That wonderful album that you have with the Refugees called California came out, I think it was last year,
Yeah.
which was a delight. And then when I got notice of this coming out of I made it this far, I was so happy because I know when we talked the last time, you talked about the struggles we have in the music business where people aren't supporting artists by buying their material. You weren't sure if you were going to do a new album or not.
Yeah.
So it's great to have these original 11 songs. Plus, if you go to Bandcamp and you buy the album, there are three additional tracks, which are also wonderful. So, Deborah,
Oh,
how are you doing?
I am okay. Yeah. Did I say I wasn't going to make another record?
You said you weren't sure. You said,
That's so
given the
funny.
music industry, you just weren't sure. And then California came out a few weeks after we talked
Right.
with the refugees, which you couldn't talk about at the time, obviously. But I'm so glad that you were still doing what you do and you do it so well. I know
Thank
you have
you.
been touring a little bit too with the refugees. Have you been doing some solo gigs as well?
Actually, the refuge there's been almost no gigs since in the past year.
Okay.
The refugees did a few shows when California came out. I occasionally do a show here and there. I am going to be doing a CD release show in LA on March 14th at McCabe's, and I'll do another my Canadian CD release show near where I live on the Sunshine Coast in Roberts Creek at the end of April.
Oh,
And then
fantastic.
I've got a few shows booked in May in the Seattle area and maybe some things on Vancouver Island in November. But not a lot. I mean, I haven't really toured in a long, long time. Yeah. I
Hmm.
just can't make
And,
it work financially. Yeah.
and I understand that. And I talked to Sid Mullins when his album came out, I think it was last year. And I
Mhm.
know that the refugees were in Nashville, and I just couldn't make it over. Unfortunately, it wasn't too far away, but
Oh,
I'm so sorry
you
I
know
missed
what?
that show.
I don't know that we ever did that. I think it was canceled.
Oh, geez.
I'm not
Wow.
sure that
Wow.
ever happened. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I don't think that happened. We ended up playing we did a show we did a show live show in Chicago and we played in Lawrence, Kansas. We never even made it to Nashville. So I'm glad you didn't drive there.
Well, I will make an effort to see you, though. I've never been to McCabe's, but I don't know if I can make it out there in March. But anyway, this album, I made it this far, and your solo work is pretty wonderful as it is. And we talked about Vancouver a little bit last time as well. But this album is wonderful, but it has a perspective which me growing older, being retired, I can certainly appreciate. So, talk about the impetus for the album. When did you start it?
The songs were all written in the past few years, and almost all the songs since I live, it's called the Sunshine Coast, although I don't know why they call it that because it's not that much sunshine. It's the same weather as Vancouver, but it's quite isolated, and it's very, I've always lived in cities. I've never lived in an area that was more about nature, but so most of the songs were written in this new location that I live in. And yes, most of the songs I would say are about reflecting on life at a certain point in one's aging, which is as I say I think it's 50-year reunions. There's
Mm.
less of my life. Yeah, there's most of it is behind me, not that much in front of me. Although I shouldn't say that. Hopefully, I'm not going to drop dead tomorrow.
But it's not an album which I would say is melancholy in any way. I mean, it is a album that people my age will understand, and it is just thoughtful and introspective. Um, so you worked on you did the production of this album, like you do a lot of your work.
Yeah.
Um, Talk about the recording Well, let's go back a little bit. You mentioned
Okay.
you've written a few of these songs over the about the last year or so.
Yeah.
Did you have an album in mind when you were writing the songs?
No, I never have a record in mind. I usually, all of a sudden, I've got 11 songs or 12 songs, and I go, I guess it's time to make a record. I don't ever think about it as a collection or a theme. Yeah.
In the recording process, you did the production. You brought in your bandmate Wendy Woldman to help mix with Abraham Parker.
Yes.
And where was it? Was it recorded?
It was recorded in probably 8 different studios with that many engineers and in that many programs used. It was maybe one of the most difficult recording processes I've ever had, and would never repeat the way that I made this record ever again. And I almost gave up. Uh, yeah, it wasn't until um, the overdubs and then the vocals went on that I thought it was ever going to get finished. Yeah, it was not. It was. I should know better because I've been making records for many, many years. I made a lot of mistakes. Yeah, I recorded things out of sequence. Uh, I recorded some of the things with people who don't have as much experience recording. I used multiple different programs like Pro Tools and Logic and the Cubase and even when they were the same, they weren't the same versions of the program. So there was a lot of transferring. There was a lot of things that got lost, things that had to get redone, things that had to get edited. It was a very difficult record to make.
So when we spoke 2.5 years ago, I asked you a question about the writing process, and you mentioned that because I always ask, how do you write a song? Do you write it on your computer? Do you write it on a keyboard? Do you write it on a guitar? Has your process in terms of composing changed over the last several years?
You remember what I said last time? I'm just curious. What did
Yes,
I?
what you said was that whatever moves you. So you may pick up a guitar, you may go over to a keyboard, whatever works for
That's still kind of true. I usually have an idea, either a song title or a line or yeah, some vague notion. And yes, I'll either pick up a guitar or go to the piano, and words and music together at the same time.
you. Mhm.
Except for songs that get co-written. That's a different process. But the songs that I write by myself, which is usually the majority of the songs that I record, that's the way they get written.
And I think you have what you have four co-writes on this album: Wildfires, Everybody's
3.
Drinking But Me. Oh, three.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Wildfires with Shirley Wiebe, Wiebe.
Yeah, Shirley Reed. So Shirley was a songwriting student of mine, and the song was written about the BC wildfires. Of course, sadly, I've been in LA when I was in LA while the fires were happening. Um, anyway, she had this song, but it wasn't completely fleshed out. There were musical things and some lyrical things, and I asked her if I could take it on and make some changes. And fortunately, she said yes. Not everyone
Hmm.
will do that, and she's very pleased with the result. So that's how that song got written. So yes, that's a completely different way than my other songs. And the other two songs I co-wrote with Dan Navarro.
Dan Navarro.
Um, yeah, so Circling the Drain, we actually wrote that. Oh, well, he recorded it on his last album. So sorry, my dates are a little bit confused. That might be one of the older songs of this group.
Hmm.
And then he came to visit me in Vancouver a few years ago, and we wrote Everybody's Drinking But Me. And actually, I just came back from visiting him. He lives out in the desert in LA near Palm Springs, and we wrote two new songs together. He and I seem to really we really click when we write together. We get into a
Hmm.
really good zone. That doesn't happen with that many people. So those songs are kind of different, yeah. But even with Dan, same thing. There was a title, an idea, and
Hmm.
then we just fleshed it out.
Yeah, those are all wonderful songs. I want to go. Well, I guess we'll get to Wildfires in a little bit. Let's start with the first song on the album, which is the first single,
Yes,
which is "Thankful Thanksgiving 2023." Could you talk about
yeah.
how you came up with that?
I think this is the best song I've ever written.
Wow,
I
that's saying
do.
something.
It's the song that has made me happiest of any song that I've written. And
Hmm.
basically, I went to visit my brother and sister-in-law Thanksgiving 2023, right after the refugees played in Chicago. And we do that thing like many families do on Thanksgiving, where you go around and you say what you're thankful for. And just got me thinking about, in spite of whatever difficulties and challenges I have in my life, and I do have some very significant ones, I'm still so lucky.
Hmm.
And that song just poured out of me. It just seemed like, yep, that's a no-brainer. So I really had fun writing that song. I'm very pleased with the recording, and I don't know if you got to see it, but I made a very fun video of it also, where
Yes.
I got lots of my friends to hold up signs what they're thankful for. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a touching song, and the video is. I was surprised to see the video. I didn't know it was coming out, and I saw it. I was amazed by it because the song really hits home.
Oh,
It really does. So thank you for that. Now you're playing acoustic guitar in the song. You have
yeah.
Patterson Barrett, who does this wonderful pedal steel work and also organ and mandolin.
Yep.
Um, and then Wendy Waldman, your bandmate, is helping out with harmonies.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get all that together?
Again, okay, so how did this get recorded? So it started with, this is how screwy this is. I recorded the acoustic guitar and a scratch vocal to a click track. Then Nick Vincent, I was in LA
Mhm.
last winter, or was it no. Oh, okay, sometime in the past year and a half. Then Nick recorded drums. This is not the way you make a record. And then next step was bass, and then the overdubs, and then the vocals. Yeah. So that's how this one
Yeah,
got recorded. And the
wonderful
overdubs
job.
all got recorded in Florida. That's where Patterson was at the same time. Um,
Okay.
and the vocals in LA with Wendy Waldman. Yeah. Guitar and bass in where in British Columbia.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it sounds wonderful. Like you all were there in the same room, had
Oh
the same
boy.
mindset.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Preston, because woo-wee, it was not that way.
It's such a glorious start to an album, and it brings the listener right in. The next song is a long time ago, more of a piano-based song. Talk about that a little
Yes.
bit.
Um, okay, so this is a song. I don't think it's a tearjerker, but it has some sadness to it. It's about a friendship that gets lost, due to the friends relationship in their life. Yeah. And This song and two other songs have a string quartet on them.
Yes, yes.
And it's the same Adrian Dolan, who lives on Vancouver Island. He's so masterful at string arrangements. He plays the violins, he plays the viola, and then he brings in a cellist. So I've used
Mhm.
him quite a few times since Fine Thank You, my record from 2020, which got released March of 2020, right in the thick of COVID. He did a lot of strings on that record too. And if I was super wealthy, I would do a whole record with him. I love what he does. Yeah, I love this
Yeah,
he does.
the strings are incredible. The song's incredible. So he did the strings on that. Then he also did the strings on Everybody's Drinking But Me.
Yeah,
Um,
and one other song. What's the third song he plays?
I don't
There's a
know.
third one.
I
I
didn't write
can't
it
remember.
down. I
It'll
don't
come
know.
up when
'Cause
I
okay.
can't think of what strings on. But there's a third song.
Okay, I have to find that. So the next song on my list, well, the next song in order is Circling the Drain with that wonderful, is that slide guitar and then banjo? Circling the Drain, lap steel by Patterson, Barrett,
There's no banjo.
mandolin,
There's
organ.
lap steel. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That was hearing banjo. Talk about Circling the Drain a little bit.
No, there's no banjo on the record. Okay, well, again, that's a song that Dan and I wrote a few
Right.
years ago, and it's another song looking at life, the ups and downs, and to try not to be so hard on yourself. To try and get some joy out of life, even though inevitably we know what's going to happen. You might as well have some fun along the way.
Yeah, might as well have a good time.
Yeah, and Dan
A great,
sang, and the two songs that Dan co-wrote, he sang duets with me. Those are the only two songs that Wendy and I didn't do the vocals on. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, that works out really well. Wonderful harmonies there. And like I said, I thought it was slide guitars. Well, lap steel's the same thing. Wonderful
Yeah.
sounds there.
Yeah.
And then that brings us to my lifetime, which you handle the accordion, the piano, and the dulcimer.
Yes. So that song I wrote on this weird little instrument. uh, it's a kind of a fake dulcimer. Um,
Hmm.
but it doesn't record very well. It doesn't get a great sound. So I borrowed a real dulcimer. And I had been performing that song for about a year or two with Michael Friedman. He's a fingerstyle guitarist who lives on the Sunshine Coast where I live. Uh, and so I had to have him on the record
Mhm.
because he plays in these open tunings, and to me it almost sounds Hawaiian, like the tuning that he uses and the way that he plays this song. So I had to have him on this one. Yeah.
And I think it's Patterson and Barrett who handles the solo with the
Yes.
dobro.
Beautiful solo. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned
The
Michael
accordion,
Friedman on the acoustic there.
the accordion was the very last thing I added, and that I did back in Vancouver, this song and East Porpoise Bay. And I added the accordion because the piano plays these little licks uh, in the last verse, and I felt like they needed to be enhanced somehow. So I play accordion. I thought, why not have some accordion on the record?
Yeah, it fits together really well. Song number five is Born with a Broken Heart.
Now that is a sad song. So that's written about my younger son, who actually was born with a broken heart. He was born with something called tetralogy of Fallot and had open heart surgery at 4 months. I had had the
Wow.
title. I thought, well, how could I not write a song called Born with a Broken Heart? But it took me about 10 years to be able to sit down and actually write the song because I knew it was going to be a hard song to write. And it was painful. And sometimes I even have trouble singing. Voice just sort of breaks while I'm singing it, but I think it's a beautiful song, and he deserves to have a song. He's had a lot of challenges in life and continues to have challenges in life, and he's a now he's a grown man. He's almost 24, and he's a very sweet person, and yeah, I think it's a nice tribute to him, and does describe the difficulty of loving someone who has all those challenges. It is very difficult.
It is a touching song. The context you gave it makes it even more touching. And it's simply beautiful, especially with acoustic bass, your acoustic guitar, excuse me, the pedal steel again,
Yeah.
and the harmonies that you provide. Wonderful. Next up is East Porpoise
Thank
Bay.
you. Yeah, so that's Canada. I have written maybe a dozen songs that mention the weather or about the weather. It's ridiculous because I lived in LA for 33 years. You don't write songs about the weather in it. Well, I did actually. I wrote The Winds of Santa Ana years ago, but typically the weather is not something that's on your mind. But um, it definitely is living in Canada. And that song is really, I started to think about how the weather is kind of a metaphor for life. It's,
Mhm.
within one day you get something good happens, something bad happens, and it just changes like the weather. And your perspective is going to change depending upon, what the weather affects us, and it does seem as though life is like the weather. It's sunny one day. I mean, not to
Yep.
sound trite, but it is. It's sunny one day, it's rainy the next day. It's hot, it's cold, it's and it's really, really lovely where I live. So it was sort of a song I actually live on. It's called East Porpoise Bay. And I wanted to I was looking out my window and just started to write that song.
A wonderful tribute to East Porpoise Bay. Next is Unfinished Business. You're handling acoustic guitar, Scott Babcock on drums, percussion, fretless bass by Carl Seelove, and pedal steel by Patterson Barrett.
Yeah. Uh, you're gonna have to ask me questions. But this one's harder to write about. I mean, it's really what it says. It's about a relationship that's stuck in the past, that can't move forward because things can't get resolved, and
Um,
my frustration with that happening.
excuse me. Is it a song that you have been writing for a while, or is it something which is relatively new in terms of the
No,
subject
it's
matter?
one of the newest ones. Yeah. No, it's a newer song. It's in the within the last couple of years, probably even only the
Mhm.
last 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. In terms of instrumentation, I think this is the only one with fretless bass on it.
It
Just
is.
seemed
I
to.
had originally I put a regular bass on, and it just seemed like it needed that more fluidity of a fretless bass. And Carl Seelove is somebody who lives here in LA who I've known for actually Carl's daughter used to be my younger son's babysitter many years ago.
Wow.
So we go back a long way. And he's someone that plays with Wendy all the time, Wendy Waldman, and we just said, well, here I am, and the regular bass doesn't seem right. So let's have Carl put a fretless on. Yeah.
Yeah, it fits. Great production and arrangement choices there. Next up, we talked a little bit about Everybody's Drinking But Me, which you
Yeah.
wrote with Dan
Let me
Navarro.
mention one other thing about
Sure.
Unfinished Business. It's got a lot of chords, like a gazillion chords. And that was the last song that Patterson Barrett was putting overdubs on, and he was really struggling with trying to come up with a part. And I said, forget it. Let's leave this one be. It'll be fine, just acoustic guitar, and bass. And he said, no, well, give me one more chance. And all of a sudden he just nailed it and knocked it out of the park to me. The pedal steel that he plays on this song is my favorite of anything that he did on the record.
Oh
You know,
wow.
it's
Okay. Yeah, I would have thought that. Well, I was thinking that the song really works well even without the pedal steel. The pedal steel obviously is the icing on the cake. It is glorious. I mean, he's an amazing musician.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is. Yeah, but you know, even like I've tried to play it, I've played it live with other musicians. I said, well, why don't you play it with me? And I said, no, no, because it does have a lot of chords in it. Yeah, it's not the easiest song to play.
But it works really well. And then we
Yeah,
we talked a little bit about unfinished. I'm sorry, everybody's drinking, but me.
yeah,
Dan, the co-writer from the Dan Navarro. Anything else to add about that? And that's again, like you mentioned, another song with the wonderful string arrangements by Adrian Dolan.
yeah. Well, it's funny. I had thought it was going to be kind of a humorous song about somebody who's sober, who goes about in the world and everybody's drinking but me. But Dan had this idea, a whole other take on it, and it really turned in, like, I thought it was going to be kind of an up tempo kind of country rock type of thing, and Dan said, no, 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 let's try this other approach, and it really turned into a completely different song, but I'm very pleased with it. Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly can hear the lyrics up tempo. That the whole premise would work, but it works the way it is too. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
and it's really a it's not really a, about a sober person anymore. It's a completely different, you know,
Hmm.
it's a completely different song than what I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah, that works. Great. Next, September, the saddest month of the year.
There you
Wow.
go, another weather song. There's the weather. That isn't only about the weather. There's nothing else about that song. And that's literally in September. It starts to get colder there, and you put away your patio furniture, and you start to put away the fans, and you start taking out the warmer blankets and all that stuff. And I'm, you know, none of the songs are, you know, normally all my other records do have a couple songs that are more humorous,
Hmm.
like Loudon Wainwright humorous, not like Weird Al Yankovic humorous. And I was very happy to have this. At least one song on the record is, you know, there's no way you'd cry.
Yeah, that's it's a nice. I'm not sure. It's not really a palette cleanser because it's not a palette. Well, it's not really changing the mood of the record, but it's a different dynamic. The
Yeah,
instrumentation is wonderful again. You and Wendy Waldman again, the harmonies, and then Patterson Barrett with all those keyboards and electric guitar, and you're playing a piano. Fantastic.
it's funny. He wanted to put electric guitar on it, and I said no, but he did it behind my back and sent it to me, and then I liked it.
Next, Wildfires. We talked a little bit about that. You're handling the piano there again, and I heard the song. I thought she couldn't. Well, first of all, California has wildfires all the time. Now,
Yeah,
California doesn't have devastating wildfires like we've just had, but
yeah,
the song could have been written 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or yesterday. And it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
as meaningful.
yeah. And I made a lyric video for it that I'll probably put out. I don't know what's today, maybe Friday, um, with videos of
Mhm.
devastating fires. I mean, it really wasn't even a song. I mean, it's number what on the record? It's like number
It's
9 or
number
10.
10,
It's way
10,
down
yeah.
10. It's way down the list. I really wasn't thinking of it as being one of the most important songs on the record. And then the LA fires happened. And of course, I couldn't think about any other song but that one.
Oh, if I could ask, I know I'm taking a lot of your time here, but does that sequencing matter in the digital age? Because it's not, first, they're all strong songs.
Yeah.
Now they're not maybe songs that you would play on the radio all the time, but there's some which you would. So
Yeah.
does the sequence how hard it was the sequencing in terms of doing this for
No,
13 songs,
I'm old
12
school,
songs?
and to me, a record is a journey. You know, an album is a journey, and I will always pay attention to the sequencing. I know not that many people listen to a whole record from beginning to end, but for those that do, they should be taken on a journey, and that's what I like to do.
And you really did that, especially with
Yeah.
uh, the last song on the album. Oh, jeez.
Because the last song is different from every other song on the record. There'd be no
Yeah,
other place to put that song.
yeah, but I think it
Well,
brings
because of
everything.
the production, because of the sound of it,
Okay.
there because it's an orchestra, so it's so different. I mean, it's not folk, it's not Americana, it's not pop. I don't know what is it? It's almost like a song from a Broadway musical or something. It's definitely
Well,
stylistically very different than the rest of the record, isn't it? I think.
it is, but I wouldn't. But I mean, I love Broadway musicals. I've seen a lot of Broadway musicals, but there's a cheese factor of a lot of musicals, which is not present in 50-year reunions. That is,
Oh,
and
that's true.
and this really hit home for me, given what I've just gone through health wise and being retired and growing older. It's like, oh, geez.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
And
And
then
this song came from a friend had posted on Facebook something about time, how time flies, and I wrote, "Time doesn't fly, it just disappears." And she said, "Oh my God, that's so perfect." And I thought, "Oh yeah," and my little songwriter antenna went up and said, "Oh, I got to use that." Yeah.
I'm glad you did. That's so true. Oh my God. Yes. Uh, wow. Okay. So great way to end an album. 11 songs. I'm not going to go through the bonus songs that you have, but they are, especially if you pre-order the album and you do it through Bandcamp, those are definitely worth it. They are wonderful. Why didn't
Yeah.
you feel like you wanted to put those in the album?
Well, they were orphan songs kind of that I released during the pandemic. I mean,
Hmm.
they I don't know. I mean, I could have put them on the record, but it didn't seem, I don't know. They weren't part of this collection and time period. So I just thought, I don't know, I'd just give those three away to anybody. I mean, I'm happy to give them to anybody who wants them. Eventually I'll just make them free. But I don't know. I thought about it and then I thought, well, then there'll be 14 songs on the record, and that seemed a lot. I don't know, it just didn't seem like part of this collection.
And
It's hard to answer.
I mean, especially the song "You Need a Song," which I think I bought a year or two ago. Um, what a wonderful song! It may not fit in this album, but it's such a wonderful song. It just needs to be heard. So I'm glad you at least made it available to people who pre-bought the album on Bandcamp, so they have
Yeah.
these. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
I did struggle with this if I should put those on the record. And then I don't know, my voice is always slightly changing, so I thought, well, maybe I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's done now. They're not on the record.
Oh, so I'll take this a few more minutes, but I'll ask about the voice piece because
Sure. Yeah.
you say your voice is always changing. How
Yeah, a little
so?
bit. My tone and my I don't know, it doesn't, I feel like it, I don't know, I feel like always sound a little different as I age, and not worse. I mean, I'm actually, lately I've been liking the sound of my voice more than I ever have in the past. Knock on wood. Right here. Hope it stays that way. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's like some subtle, to me there's a subtle difference. I don't know that anybody else, well, you can definitely hear it from Animal Logic, because I don't really belt like that anymore.
Right, right.
Yeah, there's no, I don't belt. That's in the past. Um, I don't know, there's kind of an ease to my vocals now. That's the only way I can kind of describe it. They just kind of roll out of me now with not much effort. I used to have to try more when I was singing, and I don't feel like I'm trying. I feel like it's just there, which I feel lucky, because not everybody as they age keeps their voice, you know,
Right,
and
right.
who knows what will happen. But for right now, I think my voice sounds different on this record than anything before. I could be wrong. Maybe there's no difference at all. It
Well, I
might
mean,
just be
you're the expert. I mean, does it sound different than Vancouver? Maybe, but my it's just as powerful, if not more, and it's also more nuanced than anything you did in Animalogic, obviously, because like you mentioned, you had
oh
the
yeah,
belt,
for sure.
but
Yeah.
totally appropriate for these songs. And you have such a warm and inviting voice, and some of these songs. Some of these songs will can bring a tear to your eye depending on where you are in your life. I mean, you really can.
There, maybe it could also be the subject matter. I don't know. There's an intimacy I feel like with these vocals that I don't know that I've ever captured that before. I think I've sung well. I think there's good vocals on my other records, but there's a connection now between my voice and the actual song that I don't know that I've ever quite nailed that before. At least not in my own head. You know, maybe the listener will feel it, but in my own mind, there's more of a connection. That's what I think I'm hearing in these songs. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's an intimacy in these songs, and they are relatable. The production is first class. Would not have guessed what you told me at the beginning of the interview about how you got this together. The musicianship is
Maybe
great.
don't I won't tell everybody.
Well, that's, I mean, it's a peek behind the creative curtain, and it comes across as being so thoughtful, so well produced, so well sung and played. So you don't really think about all the struggles that you went through to get it done. But it's beautiful, Deborah.
Thank you. A
Um,
lot of that is Wendy. Wendy took all these disparate pieces and things that were slightly not cohesive, and she did a lot of work on it. It's thanks to her a lot that the record came together as well as it did. Yeah,
yeah,
I really have
it's a
to
wonderful
credit
record.
her. Yeah.
Great. So it is out on March 5th, 2025. It's available as a download as well as CD. I think the last
Right.
time I asked you about vinyl and you told me it wasn't much of a market for that.
I know there's a market, but I don't, hey, it's last who was I talking to? Somebody I did a podcast with someone and they said, "Oh, we'll take your what were they going to do? They were going to take the Animalogic songs and the two that I released and turn them into vinyl." I just don't have the knowledge or the finances. I'm not against it, I mean, but how many people would buy it? 20? I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of market there would be for vinyl. I mean, I love the idea. I love records.
Okay, I'll admit something. I have a big vinyl collection, probably 10,000 records.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and some of them date back to the 50s and 60s, my father's jazz records. I buy vinyl, but the reason I buy vinyl is the same reason I will buy a CD because I want to support the artist. So if I can buy something
I
that
get
gives them money, I will do that. And I like the
it.
artwork. I may listen to it once or twice, but yeah, but it's about supporting the artist. And if whatever you need to do, Deborah, to come up with another Deborah Holland album in a year or two, or another Refugees album, anything that we can do to support that as consumers, we should do that because this
Oh,
is
thank you so much.
it's just so wow. It hits me kind of like it hits me too. It hits really close to home for me, given what I'm going through now. But thank you for
Yeah.
the album. Anything else you want to add?
Not that I could think of, no. I've got
Yeah.
7 new songs for my next record already.
But hopefully we'll be chatting about that in the near future. And I'll keep an eye on your website. I think it's deborahholland.net, as
Yeah.
well as where you are on the social media
Facebook.
and
Yeah.
Facebook, and of course Bandcamp, where you can buy this album and get the
Oh,
CD.
so sorry. The phone started to ring. and it's something really important. Can I grab
All
it?
right. Yes. It's good talking to you, Deborah.
You
I'll reach out
too.
to you soon. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much. Okay. Bye
Bye.
bye.